It had been years since I last saw him. The boy who used to make me laugh in the back seat during long family road trips. The one who dared me to jump into the river even when I was too scared to touch the water. The boy who became my stepbrother. When our parents married in a quiet ceremony on a rainy spring morning, we had grown up like shadows, crossing each other's paths, never quite touching until we did now. He was back older, broader, quieter, with eyes that lingered too long when we made eye contact and a voice that carried things it never said. My husband shook. His hand laughed, offered him a beer, and asked him to stay for the weekend, not knowing the way my heart tripped when I saw the man my stepbrother had become. He sat across from me at dinner and told stories that made everyone laugh, but his eyes never left mine, even when he smiled at my husband or nodded politely to my friends. There was something in the air between us, something restless and familiar, something that knew how I used to feel when I was 16, and he caught me watching him through the crack of the door. When he stepped out of the shower, towel slung low on his hips. That night after everyone went to bed, I heard footsteps down the hallway, and I froze still in my silk nightgown that clung to my thighs like a whisper. I stepped out to check, and there he was, leaning against the wall, shirtless, eyes heavy with memory. He said he couldn't sleep. I said, me neither. We sat on the kitchen floor like old times, knees brushing fingers, accidentally touching the space between us, filling with everything we never said until his hand found mine, and neither of us pulled away. Should have, but I didn't. Morning light poured through the windows, like a truth we weren't ready to face, but it didn't stop me from thinking about how he had touched my face last night, how his fingers traced the edge of my jaw as if memorizing the shape of something forbidden, how his breath tickled my skin. When he leaned in close and whispered my name like it was a promise or a curse, my husband kissed me on the cheek and asked me if I slept well, and I smiled like a liar and said yes as my heart beat out a rhythm I couldn't call my stepbrother avoided me all day, or maybe I avoided him. We played our parts well until evening fell and the quiet returned, like a tide ready to pull us under again. I found him outside by the fire pit alone, staring at the stars with a drink in handy. Didn't mean to sit beside him, but I did. I didn't mean to let my thigh press against his, but it did. I didn't mean to say, still think about you sometimes, but it spilled out like water through shaking hands, and he didn't run. He just looked at me with those eyes like fire meeting snow, and he said, I never stopped thinking about you. Not once. The silence after that was deafening until he kissed me, and it wasn't gentle. It wasn't slow. It was everything we had kept locked away for years, bursting like a dam, breaking his hands. Knew my body like memory. His mouth tasted like sin, and I didn't stop him, not even when he lifted me into his arms and carried me to the guest bedroom, not even when his name spilled from my lips in the dark over and over again. Should have said, no, I should have left. I should have remembered the vows I made, but all I remembered was the way he made me feel, like I was wanted, not just loved, but craved. He left the next morning before the sun rose, a silent exit, no note, no goodbye, only the warmth still left in the sheets and a bruise on my hip where his grip had lingered too long. My husband made breakfast, whistling the same tune he always did, completely unaware that something inside me had changed. Wasn't guilt, I felt it was ache, it was longing, it was something I couldn't name but carried with me like a second skin. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, wondering if anyone could see the difference, if my eyes betrayed me, if my lips still tasted like him weeks past. And the silence between us stretched across the miles he didn't call, and I didn't write, but sometimes at night I would lie beside my husband and wonder if my stepbrother was awake, thinking of me, wondering if he regretted it, or if he would ever return. One afternoon while folding laundry, I found a note tucked inside a sweater I hadn't worn in years. It was from him, written long ago, confessing how he felt when we were just teenagers, how he had buried it for the sake of our family, for the sake of what was right, but now it felt like fate had always been waiting for its moment. Folded the note, placed it in the bottom of a drawer, and never spoke of it again. Not to my friends, not to my husband, not to anyone. Some secrets live in shadows, and some moments are meant to burn in silence. The world moved on, but I didn't, not really, because part of me will always belong to him to the night we crossed the line and never truly came back. That was the secret I shared with my stepbrother and not my husband.